Undertale is a video game that plays around with the meta-narrative aspect of understanding that it is, in fact, a video game. And there's nowhere where this is more observable than how the game weaves saving and loading, things that usually exist solely as a gameplay element, into the world, lore, and story. For those of you who didn't pay attention and read the dialogue during the game, which is most of you, saving and loading is treated as an in-universe ability possessed by whoever has the most determination in the underground. At that moment, whoever that person is has complete control over the save and load system, enabling them to have the power to alter time and fate itself. As Sans puts it, timelines starting and stopping, left and right. During the course of the actual game, the save and load system is exclusively within the control of the player, with only one moment of exception during the neutral final boss, Flowey. But that's not the only time Flowey has had that level of control. Prior to the start of our game, it was his game. And through him, Undertale's narrative grants a unique look into the internal character of an entity with the ability to rewind time. It shows us the psychology of time loops. Hey, look at that, that's the title of the video. I'm getting pretty good at this whole video essay thing, aren't I, huh? Now check out this sick segue into this next part of the video. This video is sponsored by... Characters in Undertale and their understanding of resets can mostly be divided into 4 groups. Those who have absolutely no interaction with it and are none the wiser, which is seemingly almost everyone. Those who do not know about them but may experience symptoms of déjà vu or have an instinct that they've seen something before. Those who have knowledge about resets happening, most likely experience the symptoms as well, but still cannot actually remember through them. And those who remember it all. This category is exclusively populated by only 2 entities, Flowey and you. Well, technically yours goes further in the ability to remember through a true reset, but let's ignore that for now. A character like Sans, as much as he wants, cannot exceed the limitations of the world he exists in. Even with scientific understanding of what resets are, and knowledge that they are in fact occurring, he himself admits he can't remember through them. His knowledge of them, and intuition that the player is the one causing them, enables him to poke fun at you or taunt you in his own special way. He reads expressions, takes guesses, and uses intuition and reaction to figure out how to proceed, whether with you or against you. It's an incredible way to write a character, but it's not the focus of today's video. Flowey, on the other hand, directly remembers every single event that occurs. He'll immediately call you out on resetting, and even flat out refuse to fight you again at the end of a neutral ending, because he knows that there's no winning for him. But it's through these conversations you can have with him after completing sequential neutral endings that you start to realize that the way Flowey treats this world is nearly identical to how you do. He treats it as a game. But he's a character in the world. That is his reality. Why would he treat it that way? It's because of the events prior to the game, which are all outlined in Flowey's immense monologue to you at the end of the genocide route. Before Frisk falls into the underground, Flowey had the reins on the save and load system, and through it, his mentality entirely changes. When someone has the ability to rewind time, they innately will likely use it for either good or to benefit themselves in some way. But think about what that would do to a character's attachment to reality. Flowey originally unlocks the use of the ability through attempting suicide. His immediate first realization is that he can completely cheat death with this power. At that point, things just stop mattering. You inevitably become detached because what does anything even mean anymore when you can simply choose to undo it at any moment? The people around you, even friends and family, start to slip into just being characters to you, filling a role. And that's exactly how Flowey comes to view the world he lives in as just a game. The people close to him, and the people he talks to, they're just sets of numbers and lines of dialogue now. And in the world he lives in, there's a limited amount of options that will eventually be exhausted if you try every possible combination. These people will turn into nothing more than pieces on a game board, characters in a story, or even actors on a stage. Oh, hey, that's an oddly specifically worded analogy to make. It's almost like I want to talk about something else for a moment. So let's talk about another example of a character with the power to loop time. I recently sat down and played through a wonderful little game called Instars in Time. If you've never heard of it, you should play it right now. It's an RPG where the main character of the game, Siffrin, has to free the kingdom of Valgard from an evil king's curse. However, really quickly into the game, Siffrin finds out that he has the power to loop back time to the point at which the game started. This ability completely retextualizes the game and becomes the main focus of the story, character interactions, and the general psychology and mentality of Siffrin as he continues to loop time over and over again in order to make progress towards defeating the king and saving the world. And that's as far as I can talk about without spoiling more than the first 30 minutes of the game. If that at all made you interested in the premise of this game, you really should go play it. I greatly enjoyed my time with it, and it gets an incredibly strong recommendation from me, especially if you enjoyed Undertale. I'm not going to spoil anything past the midsection of the game in this video, but if you'd like to avoid anything further than just the first act of the story, you can skip to this point in the video. Okay, still with me? So, eventually you're able to defeat King, but this is where the game flips the script and instead traps Siffrin within the time loop with seemingly no way out. And this is the portion of the game where the detachment from reality really starts to set in. The more and more Siffrin repeats the same events again and again, even happy and close scenes with his beloved friends, the more distance he grows. He begins referring to everything like a play, and that everyone is just an actor. He entertains more and more intrusive thoughts, and everything just becomes routine. Every repeated line is mundane. Even in the moments where he is able to get as close to his friends as possible, to where he even begins calling them his family, the seemingly eternal time loop prevents him from staying in that reality any longer. Now, unlike Flowey's situation, Siffrin is actually trapped, where Flowey could theoretically just stop his saving and reloading at any moment, right? But I'd like to present the point that simply knowing one has the ability to turn back time would irreversibly change their worldview. Even if you opted to stop using the power, you'd always know that you have it in your back pocket, and it fundamentally alters how you interact with the world around you. For instance, there's a few moments in the game where Siffrin either loops back out of convenience, or sometimes when something happens that causes discomfort to him, unrelated to actual death or injury. Even if he wasn't trapped, he'd still use the power to fix mistakes as they come up. Anybody would. And in that way, it's the same thought process as Flowey's situation. You could even make the argument that Flowey is trapped in his situation as a soulless flower, and that finding his quote-unquote perfect ending is the only way out for him. It's really fascinating to see a character like Siffrin, who's so humanly relatable, go through something like this, and to see their internal thoughts the entire way through, to experience it with them. Many of Siffrin's characteristics are ones shared by a previous example of a time loop victim in Flowey. However, there is one key difference between the two of them. While both of them show the impact of time loops on their attachment to their realities and their characters, Flowey is different in a huge way. Flowey lacks a soul. He cannot feel love. And it's not for a lack of trying. He actually tries as hard as he can to find love for his family again when he's resurrected, but he just can't. It doesn't exist. It can't exist. He lacks the ability to have empathy. And this is where Flowey diverges and begins using the reset feature to entertain what happens if he uses his special power to kill people. After all, he's tried every other possible combination of talking and events that he can with everyone. With no consequences and him feeling no empathy, what does it matter anyway? And it's in this final way that an incredibly interesting connection is formed between Flowey and the player. Flowey's lack of empathy is a circumstance of his in-universe situation, him literally lacking a soul. But this barrier to truly loving the people around him is a foil to the barrier that prevents us, the players, from also feeling true love towards them, because it's just a video game. We, as players, already start with that level of disconnection from the very beginning. They're just game characters, they're not real, and we can always just reset if something goes wrong. And sure, there's some people who play the pacifist route one time and then never play again. There's some who refuse on principle to ever hurt these characters because they actually do truly care about them. But most of us, we become just like Flowey inevitably. It all starts at just wanting to see what happens. Both of us, the player and Flowey, have been disconnected from reality and consequences through the ability granted to us to rewind time and just do it again. Eventually, killing them starts to mean nothing too. The first time, it's grueling, agonizing for some. I've heard stories of people who sobbed after killing Papyrus because it hurt them to do so. But they still did it. And just like Undertale says, they could probably find it much easier to do the second time, or the third. That's the true psychology of time loops, and the path that can lead someone down when they reach full disconnection with reality. Flowey is the inevitability of this outcome, and an absolutely brilliant stroke of writing. This character cannot exist in a way that is meaningful in any other medium. This is something that can only truly be explored in an interactable environment such as a video game. Undertale makes the connection that a character stuck in a time loop is not too different from how we, as players, fundamentally approach video games. It's masterful writing like this that has people still talking about this game 9 years after it was created. Well, I hope you all enjoyed yet another attempt at a super crazy Shayy video essay. I really want to start doing stuff like this more often, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Oh, and seriously, go play Instars in time. It's a truly wonderful game, and I hope you love it like I did. Thanks for watching. See you next time.